Punya intro video, take 7.
Thank you. And my sincere apologies for missing the big party that's happening at Biosphere 2. I guess ostensibly to work on principles for the equitable design of STEM learning environments. And sort of that's my response. I'm just kidding. My name is Punya Mishra. I'm Associate Dean for Scholarship and Innovation at the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. I've been at the Teachers College for 2.5 years now. Arizona State, of course, claiming to be the new American university. And this is a required slide I have to have, which says that we are the number one in innovation for the past 4 years. Getting back to the topic of this meeting and my marching orders, which were given to me by Jill, and I've learned not to be fooled by that wonderful smile because she was very clear that I needed to be provocative. And so it's not surprising that I feel a sense of pressure. And my goal today, honestly, is to not end up that way. As I was thinking about this presentation, I thought about Sydney, Australia, not because I want to run away there, but because back in January, I was there for the 5th International Conference on Mobile Technology in Teacher Education. It was great to be in Australia. I got to watch some cricket. I got to try Vegemite, which actually turned out to be not so much fun. As it turns out, I was actually invited to give the keynote at the first edition of the Mobile Technologies Conference back in 2015. So that was sort of a moment of reflection for me between 2015 and 2019. Sort of interesting times, right? So back in 2015, I was working in the area of technology and education, particularly focused on what is it that teachers need to know. There was, of course, this whole thing called the TPAC framework, thinking about 21st century learning, understanding that things had changed dramatically over the years, and that what information that can fit in the palm of our hand has also significantly changed over time. We live in a world in which we are immersed by different tools and technologies, different software and social media, all these tablets and devices, which actually, if you think about all the apps and things that are there, open up interesting portals of knowledge, information, connection, what have you. Around that time, we were also seeing sort of the beginning of the sort of 3D printing and the maker movement, things that you guys will be talking about over the next few days. Most of the move, if you think about it, in technology, digital technology has been going from atoms to bits. So you digitize print, you digitize audio, and you can then manipulate and do all kinds of interesting things. The movement, of course, now can also go backward, that you can go from bits to atoms. And I think educationally, that's a really powerful thing because it brings in a whole new array of conceptual ideas that we can now play with. And we knew that there were challenges, so not everything was perfect. For instance, this UN study showing that more people have access to cell phones than toilets tells you something about the priorities that we as humans have put on things, right? But overall, the trend was positive, and I was optimistic. This was around the same time that the Arab Spring had just happened, fueled by, for a large part, by some of these new media and technologies. In educational technology, the conversation had moved from merely using technology to integrating technology and actually going beyond that to thinking about innovating with technology. So we felt that we were on the right track. Interestingly, how naive we were. There is supposedly this ancient Chinese curse which says that may you live in interesting times. Turns out that this really has never been an ancient Chinese curse of this nature, and this may be an early example of fake news. Within months of speaking at Galway at the MITE conference, we had Brexit, we had the election here in the United States, we learned about Russian bots and Twitter hacks, we learned about how Facebook had shared information with Cambridge Analytica and how they had tried to manipulate us, and of course this whole thing about fake news. And we live in this world now where Facebook and Twitter can be weaponized. And also we have an understanding that these tools that we use have been created to be addictive by design. I mean, this is a quote from Sean Parker, that Facebook was designed to exploit human vulnerability. And in some ways, a lot of sort of the psychology of persuasion and human behavior has been sort of put into these devices. So these devices that we carry with us that I use all the time is actually a small slot machine in my pocket. And we also realized and understand that we were and are being manipulated. So there's this whole area of black hat design, which uses deceptive, persuasion tactics. And when you combine that with unethical use of personal information, you enter what we call the dark arts. And this is a wonderful article about how technology is hijacking your mind, where I've taken these 10 points from. I'm not going to go into all of them, but essentially what's happening is that with every breach of trust or privacy, seems relatively small and easy to justify. But over time, it takes up more and more of our life and control over our lives. And what is important to understand that historically, and true even today, that it is attacking the most vulnerable amongst us. So if you look at, I don't know if you've seen the movie 8th Grade, I really recommend that movie because it's a wonderful sort of story of this girl as she's trying to deal with just growing up and how these media and tools become a critical part of our life. So I've often wondered that maybe we need to offer a course like Defense Against the Dark Arts, sort of like in Hogwarts. And I have this great quote from Snape where he says that dark arts are many, varied, ever-changing, and eternal. Fighting them is like fighting a many-headed monster. And then we have Wendell Phillips, who says that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Power is ever stealing from the many to the few. And this is important, I think, for us as a field to understand. And while all this was happening, we were conducting little studies which compared one condition with another, one classroom against the other, online versus face-to-face, whether simulations are better with this or that. In fact, just this other day, I came across this study where they looked at 37 kids, I think it was, and they proved that in virtual reality, boys learn best when the teacher is a drone, girls learn better from virtual Marie. And my response to this is, what the heck are we thinking? And so my question to myself, as much as to all of us, is where did we go wrong as a field? I don't claim to have answers to all of these questions, but I know that we need a broader frame. That whenever we have talked about design and education, we have focused on artifacts, whether it's an app or a lesson plan. We have focused on processes. How can we do something in a classroom? What's the bell schedule? We have thought also, rightly, I think, about experiences. What is the nature of the experience that our children are having in learning environments? But despite all of this, we have ignored the issue of design, of systems, and culture. And I think it's important for us to understand that technology can help us see, but only if we see technology the right way. All of us know about the Khan Academy, and that prompted me to ask a question, is that how does Salman Khan learn? And then I found this interview of him on the Charlie Rose show. And because I'm not going to show you the video because the Charlie Rose voice actually gives me the creeps. So I'm going to just tell you a quick summary of what Salman Khan does when he has to learn something. He talks about immersing himself in the subject. He talks about scaffolding and annotating, that it doesn't matter how long it takes. He tries making intuitive connections, tries to understand why. He makes analogies. He calls up some friends. He asks what he calls are obvious questions. He uses all that to create a video, and he puts it out in the world, and people give feedback on it, and he goes back and redesigned it. If you think about all that he does, this is exactly how educational psychology and all that we know has told us how good learning happens. But how does Salman Khan recommend that everybody else learn? He says, just watch the video. So the question we have is, what is wrong with that picture? There is a great essay, and I would really recommend everybody to Google and look this up. It's called The Reductive Seduction of Other People's Problems. That when we are thinking about solutions for problems that we are at a distance from, we tend to come up with simple, simplistic answers. And so one of the things I always wonder about when I look at people trying to offer us suggestions for what would be the latest, newest thing that could transform education or fix education problems, I wonder, why do we come up with solutions for other people's kids that we would not accept for our own kids? I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves. And we need to understand that technology is not just technology, that it is deeply embedded in social practice. I wonder how many of you know of this thing called a missed call. Or a missed call. It actually has its own Wikipedia entry. And basically this is like in countries like India, Indonesia, Bangladesh. It's you give a call to somebody because you have a prepaid phone and you don't want to use your money. And you hang up before they can pick up the phone. This is a way of sending a message. For instance, a kid could do a missed call to a parent letting them know that they've arrived. It also has its own symbol. And turns out that a significant portion of the cellular network of some of these countries is used up in missed calls. The point here is that understanding the missed call is more than understanding just the technology. It requires understanding the broader system and culture within which these technologies exist and function. Also, I think we need to understand that technologies are not neutral. The idea that algorithms are biased, and more research shows that, is something that we have to understand because it is based on data and designed by people who may be biased. My favorite example is something that you will hear a lot about these days is computerized scoring of essays. And there is a professor at MIT who goes around trying to test these. And here is an essay that he wrote, which got the highest possible score. And I'm going to read you a couple of lines from it. You can look it up online. So this essay starts, in today's society, college is ambiguous. We need it to live, but we also need it to love. He goes on to say, high college costs are the result of excessive pay for teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are paid an excessive amount of money. The average teaching assistant makes 6 times as much money as a college president. And he goes on this way. And the thing is that he is gaming the system which allows, gives the software, give this a really high score. And I wonder about, here is another story, much shorter, but I think much more poignant and powerful, which is for sale, baby shoes, never used. What score do you think that story would get? And what does it mean when we pass on decision making to these algorithms? I think the need for us, and I hope that the conversation over the next few days will focus on some of these broader issues, is to try to understand the system and the culture within which these function, and get into the discussion of how we can design and the system and the culture in new ways. And I think it's time to rethink some of our approaches when we think about these tools and technologies. Facebook was famous for saying move fast and break things. I think it's time that we rethought that. And we thought about going slow and nurturing things. Before I end, I have to give a shameless plug about some of the work that we're doing at the Office of Scholarship and Innovation, as well as the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, around this idea of principled innovation. So we are working in collaboration with districts and community organizations to design innovative solutions to wicked problems, using an open-ended design process that truly values context, diverse perspectives, and iterative testing of solutions. Some of the work, these are some images of the work that we have done, where we have brought groups of people together as they think about, for instance, the design of a school or a high school. And the different perspectives that you get when you talk to teachers, parents, students, minority parents, is very eye-opening and needs to be factored into design. So we think about design as a process of co-design. Apart from the work on practice, we have also been thinking about sort of the theoretical aspects of this and are developing a discourse, a framework for thinking about the different discourses of design in education. I'm not going to go into this detail, but if you want to know more, do reach out to me. My email address and website of my office are given below. And before we finish, let's not forget, we should never lose sight of the fact that children and teachers in classrooms are conscious, sentient, and purposeful human beings. So no scientific explanation of human behavior could ever be complete. In fact, as David Berliner says, no unpoetic description of the human condition can ever be complete. I want to end with 2 photographs. These are my kids, and badly photoshopped, their first day of going to school and their last day when they're graduating high school. What's interesting to me is the expression on the face of the little ones as they look forward to 12 years of going through this. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind as we collectively work together, leaving it better than we found it. With that, I wish all of you a wonderful few days at Biosphere 2. I want a special thanks to Claire Gilbert for helping with the video, and a shout out to Michelle, and I hope that I can get to see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.